Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, dear participants. We acknowledge that you come from a number of countries from different time zones. So we are very happy that you joined this webinar, this WRF series of webinars. Today, we will be glad to get an update, to receive an update on the ISO 14075 standard. It is an international standard by Marzia Traverso from the RWTH Aachen University in Germany. And also an introduction on the first social product declaration by Davide Bonaffini from Hitachi Rail and Marzia Traverso as well. So these are very exciting news. This will be followed by a session on questions and answers and the closing part, of course. So with this, we can start. I would like to give a brief introduction on our two speakers today. Professor Marzia Traverso is Professor and Director of the Institute of Sustainability in Civil Engineering at the RWTH Aachen University and project leader of the ISO 14017 International Standard on Social Life Cycle Assessment. She's also founder and scientific responsible of Circular, a consulting company, and co-chair of the UNEP Guidelines for Social LCA. And Davide Bonaffini today with us is head of rolling stock eco-design at Hitachi Rail. He's in charge to manage a number of tools and approaches at this company, for example, on POEMs, also on EPD, Environmental Product Declaration, and LCA, as well as REACH Manager for regulations at European level. So we welcome the two speakers today. And for those who are not aware about WRF and what do we do, the World Resources Forum is an association founded in 2012 based in Switzerland. Its mission is to empower collaboration for sustainable resources based on a multi-stakeholder collaboration, to improve knowledge, to create solutions and build capacities on the sustainable use of natural resources. Our main activities are threefold related to the forum. So we have our biannual conference, World Resources Forum. For example, this year we held the last version in Geneva. We have also an important area on projects implementation and on knowledge creation, co-creation, and dissemination. And with this, I would like to provide a short background to set the context of the webinar of today on Social LCA. And what we can witness is that sustainability is becoming a mega trend. Sustainability reporting is being taken up more and more by organizations, by the private sector, by any type of organization. And just to give an example on the evolution, we see that as of now, according to recent statistics, about 100% of largest companies worldwide are reporting on sustainability, the 100 largest companies, for example. And about 77% of the 250 largest companies are as well doing their task in this area. So this is a huge positive development that we recognize and see the need for support with tools, with approaches, with methodologies. ESG is well known to many now, is in the mouth of organizations, and is a key task and priority, where environmental has advanced, is more matured in terms of reporting, social a bit less, and governance as well. So this is what we see coming more and more, and it is in line with the Sustainable Development Goals in the next one, as a commitment, a global commitment by organizations, by countries, where social is hand in hand with environmental requirements and targets. So we see that the time has come to provide robust and comprehensive methods, techniques to support these assessments and approaches. In the last 10 years, two important documents, guidelines, have been developed, one in 2009, that were the first guidelines for social life cycle assessment of products, and then in 2020, that is the revised version of these guidelines, proof that the maturity level has been reached at the minimum, so that this is taken up internationally, according to stakeholders consulted and to the number of publications that we have seen. And in the literature, this the social LCA is the most accepted and well disseminated methodology worldwide. And with this, I am very pleased to give the floor to Marzia Traverso to provide us with an introduction and an update on the standard on social LCA 14075. Please, if you have any questions, you can start writing in the chat. We want to be able to gather all queries the best possible. Thank you. The floor is yours, Marzia.
Thank you, Sonia, and good morning, good afternoon to everyone. Yes, I will give you a very short introduction on what is the status of the ISO 40075. We are not ready yet, but we are in a good position, I would say. Yeah, I mean, as you know, the ISO 40075 will address principle and framework for social life cycle assessment. We started in April. Maybe, Sonia, should I move? I move the... No, you... Next, thank you. Yes, I will give you where we are. So first of all, the process, how we start, how was the process, and then an overview of these. So what very short, not in details, I cannot, but at least to give you what is inside, what is foreseen. And then which are the next step where we are waiting. We hope to finalize it. So we start in April 2021. And I had the opportunity to be the project leader and convener of this ISO norm. We start, and I had from the ISO directly a support from Marianne Rappaport at the beginning until last year, and then she left. And now I have with me Maria Schubert that support me in the secretariat. There were already at the beginning a certain amount of country that participate to work in the ISO. I mean, you see from there mainly what we start with. So from Australia, China as well, Italy, Singapore, Germany, Indonesia, and so on. So was clearly, I mean, for us at the beginning, it was very important to start with something. So I prepare a draft of the norm, taking the starting point mainly from the UNEP guidelines, and of course from the next slide. Sorry, Sonia. Yes, starting from the ISO norm. Sorry, ISO 4040 and the UNEP guidelines. What you see right now is the timeline where we are. So we started, as I mentioned, in April, and we had already at least 7 meetings where we address and discuss all the comments. The first was discussing on the first draft, so build up the first draft from scratch. I mean, I started with something with UNEP and the ISO 4040, adjusting what is the guidelines and references in general on the methodology of social life cycle assessment. But then, of course, we need to develop some other parts that were not finalized. That was done through the some task force group that will where we worked on the life cycle impact assessment, on the inventory part, and so on. In the other meetings, in other 6 meetings, we always had a consultation process. So always the draft was shared in the working group 15. And some comments have received. good number of comments all the time, of course, that was important. I mean, I remember around 300 every time. So, and then I elaborate that on deciding what was in terms of editorial instead of content, and then those are all answered and reported in the discussion in the meeting. So that was mainly the start. Now we are in the ballot. So we are this has been as first internally discussed and was approved. So now goes externally. So there is this moment. The ballot ongoing, and we will have it will close on the 29th of January, and where we received the final vote, and also the I imagine other comments, and there we will work again in the next meeting that is foreseen for February. I mean, as I mentioned, our starting point is the UNEP guidelines and the ISO 40014-44. But of course, we needed to adjust at some point because, as all of us knows from the work on Social LCA, there are differences. Otherwise, we would not have needed to have a further ISO, no? So if it would be everything fine with ISO 40044, then we would not have needed. In the next slide, you see the structure that we have reached today. So we have, of course, as all the ISO norm, we also start with terms and definition. Couple we will see in the next slides. But then we, so general, then we have a principle, so we have to define, and then a general description of the framework, and then the 6 is the ones where go step by step through the entire social life cycle assessment. And of course, the 6th chapter was the ones that was already commented very much, because there were some. We have to be precise. So we have to be precise, but also differentiate, to clarify, to think that people can also use people that have not LCA background, no? So they can understand and use ISO 40075 separately. I want to highlight this because when you read and you know what's LCA, so you are familiar with this topic, sometimes, of course, there are repetition, no? Because we try to explain from scratch as much as we can. We don't want to refer to the ISO 40040-44, even if there are some parts practically the same, with just social instead of environmental, but that was some part. The other part, instead, we differentiate clearly on the methodology. And the idea, this was a clear aim from the working group 15 to create an ISO norm that can stand alone without every time go back to the ISO 40014-44. So this was the idea. Next slide, to give you an example. We also, for the scope. So the scope is clearly describe principles, framework, specify requirements, provide guidance for social life cycle assessment. So, and also try to address, support the sustainable development goals. That was important. And the document generally covers all the procedure, the framework, from goal and scope definition, inventory analysis, impact assessment, interpretation, and of course reporting as well at the end. As I mentioned before, we needed to define also some terminology. So that was important to give the terms, even if some were adjusted from what we know in the ISO 40040-44, but still others instead are different. For example, reference scale, for example, social hotspot, for example, also the social impact. So we try to clearly give all the right terminology that everyone, once has in the end this ISO, can understand the ISO per se without having a background. So as I mentioned, we have the principles where we have necessary also to define the principles. So from, of course, a life cycle perspective, that is clearly referred to the all ISO 40040 series, but also what is the relative approach, what means a functional unit, what is iterative approach, transparencies. And what was important for us, I would say, in adding to what was already in the ISO 40040 and 44, is the recognition of international convention, because this is a very important part for the interpretation phase, but also for the impact assessment of the social LCA. So this was necessary to explain clearly in the principles of the ISO norm. So then the main focus, as I already mentioned, is in the 5th and 6th chapter, where stays all the framework. And there we had, of course, lots of discussion, because, of course, we want to respect as much as we can the ISO 40044, but still differentiate to drive the implementation properly in social life cycle assessment. But I mean, the structure is similar to what we used to have in the in the LCA, in the environmental LCA. Next week, we also describe the two approaches. Who is familiar with social life cycle assessment, we had also we have impact pathway approach and reference scale approach. In the ISO until now, I cannot say that we'll stay. There is we start with the type 2, so impact pathway approach that's more similar to what we do in the environmental LCA. But then we give also a description of the reference scale approach. That's the most used until today. And you see, we did also what is the reference scale, what means reference scale. An example, the figure report is also reported in the current version of the ISO. We are not ready yet. So, of course, what I'm saying to you is to give an introduction, but we have still a couple of meetings where something can be, of course, modified. What is we also was important for us to give in the 6th paragraph in the 6.4 also what are the comparative assertions. So what means between system, what is comparison between systems, but also comparative assertion, and also critical review, because this is also relevant. It's important in particular when you communicate the report externally. So for us, it's a bit, of course, there's very strongly linked with the ISO 40044. We did also in the reporting, we also report completeness check and sensitivity check, consistent check, reporting chapter. So this is also a part where we strongly refer to the ISO 40044. So this is a bit about the ISO. So I think I managed to stay on time in the 15 minutes to describe the ISO. As I mentioned, we are not ready yet. We have still a few months to finalize, and we have the final vote. So hopefully everything will work out. Yeah, and I'm happy to answer a question if you have. I suppose that we have now, or we do everything at the end. Maybe everything at the end, Sonia, right? For the question, yes. So yes. Please write the question, because we have a session on question and answer at the end of the presentation in general.
Thank you very much, Marzia. And I invite you to look at a few questions already received in the chat, in the questions chat. And with this, I would like to welcome to Davide. So he and Marzia will present together will introduce the first social product declaration, or called SPD. And very excited to hear this news from you.
So thank you very much for the. First of all, I would like to thank you World Resource Forum to invite me to share the experience that we had with this, let me say, pilot project that will bring us to explore the social assessment in the future. Today I will show just a few slides regarding my company and how we arrived at this point. In this moment, you can see only the name Blues is the name of the train of Trenitalia, but the certification we achieved is related to the platform, and this is an Hitachi Rail train. The platform is the name of the platform is Masaccio train. Please, next slide. Thank you. The company which I belong is a company, very wide company that covers more 300,000 people worldwide, founded on 1910 in the last century. And inside this company, there are around 854 companies. Even if the information is not updated, as you can see, we are referring to fiscal year 2021, but maybe there are some update both in the revenues and in the number of employees and in the companies, because we are going to achieve another company that includes more than 9,000 people, including covering the railway sector. Next slide, please. As you can see, the total revenues are covered by several different business, and Hitachi Rail is inside the green and energy mobility business that covers 18% of the total revenues. Next slide, please. The company covers both vehicles and rail control project, and maybe you are aware about our main most famous product like Shinkansen, the bullet train that is operated in Japan, and the Frecciarrossa ATR 1000 train that is the high-speed train going in Italy, in France, and in Spain. Hitachi Rail has around 40,000 people working inside, but we will reach in the next months more than other 9,000 people. So we will arrive around 23,000 people, and is a very huge company covering the different as you can see, products like vehicles and rail control side. Next slide, please. We are working in a very huge way in order to increase the sustainability of our, not only related to our premises. As you can see, we have some targets like from 50% of CO2 reduction within 2025 in our main premises, but the challenge is to reach within the net zero within 2030 of our main premises. And the carbon neutrality related to our product is more towards 2050, even if we are very close to this target, since we are managing from many years life cycle assessment. As you can see, we are working using this LEAF strategy that covers low carbon emission, energy management, and carbon inaction in our premises, amplify our sustainable culture, sustainable supply chain. We are working in a very strict way with our suppliers, increasing our the external perception of our company and the value for employees. Next slide, please. The previous slide was really referred to mainly to the scope 1 and 2, but this roadmap show how we are going to reduce it and to provide support for the scope 3 emission side. And as you can see in this slide, there is which is our main challenges. In the right side of the slide, you see the product side, social impact assessment management. We are focused to reach this aspect within 2026. We will see if we can do also with the support of Marzia. And we aim to increase our social life cycle analysis, not only for one single project, but we will like to manage the social life cycle assessment from our main project starting from fiscal year 2025. And the best important stuff is that we will like to start in reporting following ISO 40075 and using the social product declaration certification within 2027. Next slide, please. This is a very wide overview that can provide how we are working starting from before fiscal year 2022, between fiscal year from yesterday to now, I can say, and starting from tomorrow, because we have worked in LCA, in life cycle assessment, and in environmental product assessment since many years. As you can see in the darker color, there are the activity we achieved before fiscal year 2022. After we extend our experience along the whole company worldwide in order to involve each single different legal entities in order to be aware how to manage. We started also a circular economy transition project, and in the future the lighter color, as you can see, we are planning to extend the LCA, the social LCA methodology worldwide, and also the start with the circular economy transition. Next slide, please. And this is a short history on how we decide to build up this pilot project. I was present in a meeting in Brussels. I've met Marzia. I realized that this is a very important opportunity to increase, to be more aware about our product and the management regarding social and environmental impact of our product. So I start with their discussion, and then we agreed together to develop the first social LCA. After this, we achieved the important results to release the social LCA at the end of December 2021 or January 2022. And it's important to don't forget that we started discussion and after there was the pandemic, so it was really hard to manage this, because to collect all the data, maybe Marzia will tell you later, but to collect all the information needed, it's really hard, because it's like a life cycle assessment, but it's more harder because it's not only regarding material inventory, but there are many other information needed. After the release of a social LCI, Marzia started to develop the social product declaration PCR, and finally we got the release of social product declaration PCR, and this aspect bring us to finally finalize the social product declaration. And finally, at the beginning of November, we obtained the certification of social product declaration, and I'm proud because the number of this certification is 001. So really proud about this. I guess I have finished, so I would like to thank you, and I pass the words to Marzia.
Thank you, Davide. Yes, I move my screen, my background, because in this case, I'm talking as a circular and not as a my institute by university. Yes, circular support Davide and Hitachi Rail. The most important part was, of course, because we realized that we could measure through the social life cycle assessment, we can also measure bottom-up the contribution to the SDGs, as we know. This is a part. This also clearly highlight in the methodological sheets, the new methodological sheets, so the UNEP guidelines 2021. Next slide. I give you a couple of details of the SPD that now is available online, so you can find it easily. It was also there is a bit of advertisement in LinkedIn in these weeks, because we launched a week ago. So of course, as you know, social product declaration, it's like the social part or social part of the environmental product declaration. We need a product category rules. So that was not there. So we landed with the social LCA. So we were confident that we could move to the next step to formalize the communication of social impact. And then that's why we started the process, actually. The product category rules, next slide, show report how should be in the future, today and in the future, report the social life cycle assessment, social or social product declaration better, of rolling stocks. So we developed them in the first on the rolling stock train, and we started development last year. We did first consultation process already during the last in 2022. The first was external. Then we went to the other process internally with EnvironDeck. I mean, EnvironDeck international system, environment system support us from the beginning and in this pilot phase, because it's a pilot still. It was a pilot. Now it's we together with them, I mean, we also with the technical committee, they check what has been done, was reported in the product category rules. And then afterwards, we could, next slide, we could also adjust and modify the social life cycle assessment report that we had already ready in 2021, at the end of 2021. We have to adjust it to the what is the product category rule says. No, so the SPD is also available online. I will give you an idea what are inside, but I mean, this is the index you can see directly from the slide. Was also audited, third-party verified, thanks to Claudia Peña. Yes, we circular team actually works a lot to because actually the process was done at the end of the product category rules to adjust and to with some review phase to adjust and proper report the result according to the PCR. Next slide. So we talk about the rolling stock. So we also describe what is the product where we are talking, and the description of the product for us, it's important because we start social LCA generally. You start from a description of the product and also the description of the system boundary. But the system boundary contain also the materials and energy. So it's somehow a bit an inventory from the environmental one, because you have to know exactly what are all the materials and all the company related to those materials. So this is a bit the step that you have to think. When you do social LCA, you identify unit process, but also all the materials, because that can generate further unit process and further company involved. So this is as you know, we have some database, but the database are mainly hotspot analysis. Instead, if we want to have data, we have to or directly collect with a questionnaire or eventually use some reports, for example. So sustainability report can support this analysis. Next slide with I mean, as you know, reported from starting from the UNEP, we identify which are the main stakeholders in this case, and we have workers, users, and local community. That were the focus of this according also to PCR, because we report to the PCR. And from them, we will collect data on health and safety, on social benefit, on fair salary, working condition in general, human rights, but also local community condition as well. We report, next slide, the system boundaries. This is was taken, I mean, Hitachi Rail, as already Davide mentioned, work a lot already with EPD. So that was the easiest part because we could take it from the EPD. But of course, then it's not just the unit process description that you see there, but we need also to land it to the mainly supplier involved around this system boundary. So mainly we collect the next slide data. So how we proceed as much as we can, we collect primary data through a questionnaire that was developed and adjusted learning from the UNEP guidelines pilots, we could have already a starting point. We adjust that according to what is the product and also where the supply chain distributed, because it's also important. We did also an hotspot analysis with the database, the social hotspot database, to understand where are the main risks, and that's also which are the main raw materials. Because at this level of raw materials, we cannot really have a supplier, but then we map a risk assessment, and then for a supply level, we went to direction or directly collected the data, primary data through the questionnaire, or I would say, because sometimes we combine, we collect data from the report, from the sustainability report. And that allows us, next slide, to have for the raw materials an hotspot analysis, which are the main materials involved, example, copper, carbon, steel, aluminium. This allows us to have a matrix, a risk matrix, where they were distributed by producer and which are the main risks related to it. Instead, for the next, we had for the suppliers, we could assess more in details. Yeah, of course, then we use a reference scale approach also in this case. So, and also we suggest in the PCR reference scale approach. Next slide, Sonia, where was mainly reported in the UNEP guidelines. Of course, when we use hotspot, the social hotspot database, it's a bit different. It's between 1 and 4. Instead, when we go with the data from the inventory, from interview, from questionnaire, and the sustainability report, we could use the +2, -2 reference scale. Next slide, and we're almost there. I mean, this is last. As I mentioned, now everything is available. We had also an audit. I mean, of course, the SPD has been third-party verified according to the ISO 40025. And we had Claudia Peña from Adea Research and Technology support us in it. Thank you, Claudia, because she was very, very constructive and give us also feedback because once starting from the report, it was more for internal use to the something for communicate externally, there is a difference. So that, of course, then we need to make some efforts to adjust to the product category rules. With this, I conclude. I just want to use the opportunity to present, so the next slide. As you probably know, but I take the opportunity to invite you to the next Lifecycle Management Conference in 2025 that will be organized from the 2 chairs you see in this screen. So myself and Davide, and will be held in Palermo. And there for sure we will have a social LCA session, but hopefully we will run an SPD, so probably a social impact communication session as well to discuss. At least we will make it a side event if not enough abstract in this direction will be available for a make a session. Happy to, I give some answer already, but I mean, I'm happy to have a short discussion on the different aspects. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Davide and Marzia, for these introductions. As you may understand, this format does not allow full-fledged explanation on all the details, but I think the questions are very interesting and useful, and I would like to read some of them so that you can elaborate a bit further. And the nice thing of this system is that some of the questions, for example, can be rated, so people are now selecting them as key questions, so I can read some of them. One of them is about the materiality assessment. One participant is wondering if the ISO standard will include and elaborate on materiality assessment, and in which way.
Materiality assessment, which one is, yes.
Sophie Haslinger.
Yes, there is a part, I mean, at least the materiality assessment is mentioned in the ISO norm, and it's considered in particular when we talk about hotspot. Yes, it's until now is reported. Yeah,
Thank you. So there is also, about the reference scale approach, as has been identified as an optional approach.
I saw.
And if priority is given to the impact pathway, despite the limited developments.
Yes, I see, Alessandra. Thank you, Alessandra, for this question. I wanted to answer, but then it was my turn. Yes, as you know, ISO is a compromise process, no? So we discuss a lot and we are pushing, but in the working group, we are not so many people, and most of them are from the ISO 40040 and 44, and the 40, push to have classification and characterization factors and mandatory steps. So we discuss on it, and we are still in discussion. So we will see where we land in this direction. For sure, we give the import. Is it in the ISO states as a first impact pathway approach? We also say if there is no methodology available or not ready yet, then we pass to the reference scale approach. So it's what we are now, but the process not closed. Let's see what will be at the end in the ISO norm.
Okay, thanks. Two more questions. One is about whether the ISO standard connects with a capitals approach. And does it discuss potential monetization of impacts?
No, non-directly. None in this, because it's non-directly. At least I think it's because it's more general, no? So it's mainly talk about how structured as it is for the environmental LCA. Also, the environmental LCA, you don't have in the ISO 4040 and 44, you don't refer to capital approach or to monetize. It's a bit a case of what you do in terms of characterization and what you do in terms of reference scale. So, but this is not specified because the ISO is a general framework, no? So this is it's left open. Sorry.
Thanks. I think one question about the reference scale and the number of scales. It's about whether this will only include 3 scales. No distinction between -1 unacceptable but improvement, and -2 unacceptable situation, no improvement as proposed by PSIA. I think maybe you can just elaborate on the reference scales.
Yes, the reference scale until now we give a description, general description, and there is there is until now more the plus. Because giving +1 plus and just -1, so maybe 3 value, doesn't really catch. I work with Sam. Sometimes Sam has the same problem with the plus. You don't really catch the what has been ideally done, what has been as better than conform to the norm. No, so if you're just conform neutral 0 and then you have a +1 because it's better than just conform, but maybe we have a further step, ideal. So in my case, when I work with let the left ISO beside in this moment, but when I work generally, I notice that the company wants to differentiate because they have different case where we have maybe in some case they are already ideal performance. Sometimes they can still do something. They are better than the neutral. So until now, we give this opportunity to refer to the 5 different scale.
Thanks. So perhaps a question that could also link to the Hitachi Rail case. For example, it is about potential connection between social and cycle assessment and circular economy. Davide, is something that speaks to you?
Yes. Absolutely yes. Because circular economy is asking to increase our, let me say, to reduce the raw material use, and once we are aware about the management of materials and the related management by suppliers, we can improve the performance. So we are aware about our supplier, how our suppliers are managing not only materials but also their employees. So everything is strongly connected. From an environmental and social aspect, everything is connected. That's why in my presentation I refers to D4S and circular economy, because this umbrella covers each single aspect.
Thanks.
And I would like to answer to another question, if possible,
Please.
because someone is asking if conducting a social LCA it covers also the obligation of human right. Maybe not formally. I mean that maybe making a social LCA, we are aware about our value chain, not only our suppliers, but also inside internal social management, and also our customers' social aspect management. But with this social product certification, we can provide some reliable data to the people that make the verification and the due diligence. So maybe it's not official, but we can for sure fulfill and reply to the question that they can provide us.
Thanks, Davide. And one more question for you, also very specific. It's about the next steps to take to improve the process, the work.
Yeah.
Are you planning to produce
Yeah, we are
more
working.
social LCAs?
Absolutely, yes. I asked for some support to Marzia, because we want to extend our LCA approach, because we are managing LCA for each. We extended the eco design approach worldwide. This means that for each new project starting from fiscal year 2024 shall be covered by an LCA, and if possible by an EPD. We are managing this with in our environmental management system, and we are working in extend the same approach also for social life cycle assessment. So we are producing a specific dedicated procedure that could be managed in a systemic way, involving the different department and involving all supply chain. We are implementing some specific requirement to our suppliers in order to provide us the information that we need in order to release social LCA, and if possible the social product declaration, not only for a pilot project but for the new projects in the future.
Thank you, Davide. Maybe one more question for you, and then we go back to Marzia.
Yeah.
So following up on what you just said, are there specific additional social impact indicators foreseen? Is it foreseen to include a reference scale approach in the work of the SPD you are doing?
Can you repeat? I haven't understood.
The first one is on additional social impact indicators.
We are working on being more aware about this, because as you can understand, we are starting now. So we are trying to verify which are the best indicators to take into account. We started with Marzia approach, and we will see what can do the best indicator to take into account.
Thanks. And the way I understood the question was if the results in Hitachi would be presented in the way the reference scale approach results are presented. Sometimes there is a matrix with yeah.
Yeah, as Marzia said before, we use some smiling faces in order to provide the result. We are trying to improve this approach in order to communicate. But this provide us some, let me say, awareness in order to verify where we need to go into detail with some supplier in order to ask them to provide more data and more effort regarding social aspects. So we are aware about some weakness, because we are not perfect. So we are aware that there are something that we can improve. We are working on this. We are following several aspects. We are following also the certification for human rights and so on. We achieved the SCA 8000 certification. So we are working towards many directions. But in this moment I'm covering only product related aspect, because our CSR department is managing the other aspects.
Maybe I can also add, Sonia, about the presentation of the result. We have not aggregated the result, no? So we are, because it's the first. So for Davide, it was important to have a transparent presentation of the result. So we have for different supply, different steps. We have what are the reference scale in color, but also the numbers. And what is and the description? What was the issue, if there is an issue? What was the good performance? Why was the good performance? So we have really a matrix. So it's more a matrix value.
Okay, thanks. There are two questions, Marzia. Now coming back to you, we have still a few minutes. Does the ISO 14075 be used as proof for social disclosure? There is a number of initiatives. So would this be?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I think the ISO for sure can support. Don't forget that until now, the ISO 40075 is product related. As you know, in the UNEP guidelines, we have also the SOLCA, Social Organizational LCA, that's more organizational level. It's more linked stronger to what is the sustainability report. So I would say that the ISO give the bottom-up approach, bottom-up disclosure, focusing on specific product life cycle. So this is can support, of course, specifically on a product life cycle. If you allow me, Sonia, I want to clarify a misunderstanding, because I see there is a question about what ISO report in terms of indicators. So ISO doesn't report indicators. ISO report the structure. As we do also in environmental LCA, the ISO 40044 doesn't report any indicators, report how you have to structure the impact pathway, how you have to make the inventory, so explain, but doesn't report specific indicator. We don't have a methodology described in terms of impact categories, no? So or subcategories. That's not given in the ISO norm generally.
Yeah, thank you. So I think there are two key questions for the few minutes that we have left. That is saying, for future application in looking forward to more to upscaling this approach. What would you recommend young entrepreneurs to start integrating social LCA into the early stage of project? This is one, and the second one is about what is needed. So how long would it take? The time scale for doing a social LCA, SPD, a social LCA study.
Yeah, maybe okay. Scale up, I mean, or integration, I would say absolute integration in the design aspect, that would be the best, as always. I would say, depends on the complexity of the product. I would focus on some specific component or materials that are, for example, critical raw materials or biomaterials where it's known that there is some issues, textile, everything about food, textile, links with agriculture, critical raw materials, rare materials. This is could have some social aspect, but of course you can have also something. We are working also with another company about the circularity. So we are actually assessing social or circularity scenario that are new, but still to give the differences in term of social impact. So you can choose, but I would say yes, start at least or what can be much benefit or what can be the most critical one if you have a complex product. Then about the
duration,
yes. It depends. Depends how much you know about your suppliers.
I have replied because I can reply on this, because the main problem in this regard is more related to the awareness of suppliers. So exactly. It's strongly needed that you have a very good supply chain that working with you. We were at least almost lucky, because since I've worked with them for more than 15 years in managing LCA.
No.
They are aware that when we ask something about but we need more than 10 months in order to obtain the reply from all suppliers, because you have to figure that for a project like this one, there are the main suppliers, not the old suppliers, but the main supplier are more than 200. So you have to figure how much is hard to collect all data, and it's not the same to collect, let me say, material data, because in this case you are asking more sensitive data regarding wellness, regarding contract, regarding a lot of social aspect that is not so easy to obtain usually.
Exactly. That's why we use two way. No, one was directly asked us first, but then once we depends on the answer, we also check the sustainability report. No, so because at least there we can catch some data. So this is the two. Now in Europe starting to be mandatory, so we have a chance.
Yes, and maybe the very last question, and then we need to close, but I think we had a great discussion. So on databases, there were a couple of questions, because if you come from environmental LCA, some people naturally think there is already such a thing, the magic box and the magic tool with a database that can help us. Please conclude with that.
Please, Marzia, reply you.
Yes, database. Okay, I think for social LCA, SPD, database are complex to build up. But anyway, there are some starting point. Social hotspot database, PSILCA, EcoVadis, Maplecroft. There are some, all of these talking about social issue, sometimes are mixed, environmental, social, but I mean, at least social issue are there, social aspect are there for your supplier. So this is a starting point. However, you have to take in mind, as it is for environmental LCA, if you want to improve, you need to work with them. So you need to start the process to work with them, to improve, to know more what's there, because what is a risk can be a chance in the reality. Because maybe it's a risk in terms of hotspot, but then you realize the company behave much better, and then it's a benefit instead to be a risk. So makes sense to start to work with them from the beginning on.
Thanks a lot. I think with this, we can agree that, and we read this in the comments, that this is time to talk about more about sustainability, social, and how to do it better and upscale it, and where to start. We as World Resources Forum provide a platform that can tries to promote these conversations. Thank you very much, the speakers, Marzia, Traverso, Davide, Bonaffini, and with this, also the participants for your time, for your very interesting feedback. And as WRF, we will continue our series of webinars. If you are interested in getting to know more about us, our webinars and other topics, you can visit our website and stay in touch with us. We will be happy to assist you. With this, nothing else to say. I wish a nice afternoon, morning, evening, good night, maybe to some of you. And until the next time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Ciao, Marzia.
Ciao, Davide, Marzia. Great.
Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you. Bye-bye.